This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome back to History for Cocktail Parties. I'm your co-host Thornton Kennedy, here with James Ottley.
Good to be here, man.
We are in episode 2 on the Panama Canal. What did we get through in our first episode?
Yeah, so we really talked about how up until maybe the 1870s, I guess it was really the people that were talking about the canal were explorers, they were dreamers, they were not people with any type of scientific or engineering backgrounds. And it was kind of funny that we went through all of that and it finally took President Ulysses S. Grant to send an actual real team down there to do an actual survey. It was people were willing to listen to these explorers and dreamers because it was the age of scientific discovery. The Erie Canal had already been built. It was just a really exciting time, and so it almost didn't matter that these people that were talking about the building a canal didn't have any expertise. It was an epoch of scientific discovery and excitement.
It is an incredible story. Before we get back into it, I do want to talk about our sponsors. Play. Business is serious, but who wants serious, stodgy marketing? Check out our friends at Play, a full-service advertising agency. They're deep in the mix with AI and digital know-how, driving more people to your door. And whether it's IRL, in real life, or virtual, Play ensures the right people find you and buy what you're selling. See their many case studies at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com and start growing your business today.
Fantastic.
Thank you to our partners at Play. So we've caught up with how we got to this point, and I think the story's already taken off, but it gets even wilder when we get into the Suez Canal and de Lesseps.
That's right.
So take us to the next chapter.
Absolutely. So continuing on the theme of people who have
no experience,
no technical or engineering background, expounding upon, or in his case, actually building a canal, we turn to Vicomte Ferdinand de Lesseps. And you and I, is it de Lesseps or de Lesseps?
De Lesseps.
All right, let's go with that. That's our,
Just be consistent.
Right. So he was the driving force behind the Suez Canal and subsequently the French effort to build the Panama Canal. And I want to talk about how he came to build the Suez Canal because it offers some real insight on what just kind of fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy he was. And it's a real question for me. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but he was able to convince half of France to invest their life savings into the Panama Canal and tens of thousands of people to risk and ultimately give their life for the Panama Canal project based on his success in building the Suez Canal. He became a national hero from that.
He's probably the most famous, most well-known person in France
at that time. And so, the question for me is, had all these people known that he launched, head first into the Suez Canal project, not because he had carefully studied the project from an engineering or scientific standpoint, but because he had a hallucination of a rainbow and was influenced by a whack job religion, would they have followed him blindly into the Panama Canal project? And so
probably not.
Yeah,
although it's the French.
But that's why I want to go into how the Suez Canal came about, because I really think it does provide some great background. And
you really can't get to the Panama Canal without the Suez Canal.
That's right.
They are linked forever.
Absolutely.
And I don't think many people know that, which is why this episode is so cool.
Indeed. So de Lesseps was born November 19th in 1805. His family had a long, distinguished, pedigree, and they were French diplomatic service. They were diplomats, and one after the other. And his interest in canal building began in Egypt in the 1830s with the arrival of the Saint Simonians.
Right.
And a little bit about that. And I was actually going to try, I thought, is there any combination or connection, I should say, to St. Simon's Island in Georgia? And there's not.
I do not think the St. Simonians had any.
No, there was not, that I could find. But anyway, so in the 1830s, 20 French engineers led by a guy named Prosper. I know you love that name from the
Augusta episodes,
from the Masters episodes. Prosper and Fantine came to dig the Suez Canal. It was going to be a work of profound religious meaning. Their messiah was this guy, the late Claude Henri de Rouvry, Comte de Saint-Simon, who had fought with Lafayette.
Bravo, sir.
Bravo. Thank you. 12 years of French, hopefully, pays off just a little bit. But this guy had fought
in the Revolutionary War under Lafayette.
That's right, at Yorktown. So back in France, this Comte de Saint-Simon founded his own radical philosophy aimed toward a new global order. And it was kind of based on each according to his ability and each according to his work. Almost sounds like Lenin there. But anyway.
He's definitely a socialist.
Yeah.
But it was also that the engineers and the scientists should be leading the society.
That's right. Private property and nationalism would all be things of the past. Leadership of mankind was to be entrusted to an elite class of scientists and industrialists.
There I go, jumping my mark again.
No. But you nailed it. The world was going to be saved from poverty through immense public improvements, highways, railroads, the Suez Canal, and ultimately maybe the Panama Canal. So Prosper had taken up the banner after Comte de Saint-Simon had passed away, and he sails to Egypt with 20 of his followers. And it was de Lesseps, who was in Egypt as a diplomat, who persuaded the ruling viceroy of Egypt, who was named Muhammad Ali, no relation to Cassius Clay, not to throw him out of the country, because they were kind of perceived as crazy people, whack jobs, right? And so Infantine and his engineers...
And they wore odd outfits.
Oh, did they really? Tell us about that. I didn't know.
Flowing robes and these embroidered pieces. They looked very unusual. They were not dressed as most people did at that time.
Okay, interesting.
He actually had his name embroidered on his chest. It was very strange.
I guess if you're the leader, maybe you get to do that.
Yes.
All right. But even so. So Infantine and his engineers go marching off into the Suez Desert to dig the canal, 20 people.
And let's point out that the Messiah, there was a female Messiah on the other side of the world. And
come on.
He was going to connect he was the Messiah from this side, and she was going to be the Orient, and they were going to come together and create a new special new world. So it was really all about a woman. It's always
about a woman. Very well done.
This was very much a free love society.
I love it. So they go marching off into the Suez Desert, and you can probably imagine what happens. After 4 years, half of them died. Nothing is accomplished. Nonetheless,
you're telling me a bunch of socialists go out into the desert to build a canal and a bunch of them die? That's shocking.
Almost sounds like a man walks into a bar.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, nonetheless, it becomes the talk of Europe, and de Lesseps is very impressed by the young Prosper Infantine. And Prosper's his mantra, which is the mantra of Comte de Saint-Simon, who's passed away. He says, quote, this is in English.
You're not going to do the French accent?
No.
Damn.
Do not forget that to accomplish great things, you must have enthusiasm.
Oh, my God. That is such a French idea.
Absolutely. And that sticks with de Lesseps.
That is de Lesseps.
It is. The young diplomat who was in Egypt at that time.
If for nothing else, he did not want for enthusiasm.
He did not. Absolutely. And so... de Lesseps, he ends his time, his role in Egypt, and in 1849 falls on hard times. He has to resign his diplomatic post because of how he goofed up the handling of some treaty negotiations with Rome, which had formed a new republic. By the way, Italy as a country did not exist at this point. The Pope had to flee the Vatican, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to get into it. But
that costs de Lesseps his diplomatic post, and his career is over.
Costs him his job. So he's 43 years old. He's without a career. He's in debt, public disgrace. So he plunges into the role of a gentleman country farmer. But he does keep in touch with Prosper and Fantine. Prosper was one of the ones, luckily, I guess, who did not die in the desert during that attempt to build the Suez Canal.
Suez Canal with shovels and
with 20 people.
20 people.
So out of the blue, news reaches France that Egypt's ruling viceroy had been murdered by two servants, and the new viceroy is a guy named Mohammed Said, whom de Lesseps had befriended years before when Mohammed was just a young, fat, unattractive. This is a quote.
I know.
Let me restart that over. A quote: fat, unattractive, and friendless little boy.
But he had one friend.
He had one friend.
Ferdinand de Lesseps.
That's right. And later, de Lesseps named Port Said for him. So de Lesseps writes the viceroy to congratulate him. And the viceroy invites de Lesseps to Egypt. And Said had become a mountain of a man. He was described as a great eater and drinker, a ruler who liked to have his pashas wade through gunpowder, carrying lighted candles to test their resolve. But he was also known for his generous impulses and being impulsive in general. So de Lesseps wastes no time getting on a ship, getting over to Egypt. And when he gets there, the viceroy, treats him to, or invites him to go on maneuvers out in the desert. There are 10,000 Bedouin tribesmen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something out of like Lawrence of Arabia,
It's awesome.
And so he tells him, the viceroy tells de Lesseps, he says, I have a singular desire to commence my regime with some grand enterprise.
Wow.
Right. And so that is
opens the door.
Oh, but that is just the words that he wants to hear. But, and he says, he asks him, de Lesseps, Ferdinand, do you have any ideas? He's like, of course he does. He's like, I got one idea. But he keeps it to himself, and he wrote later that he was waiting for a sign. He was waiting for a sign. Fortunately, that sign comes, and he says that suddenly he was in his tent one morning, and again, they're in these big, tents in the desert. There's mahogany furniture, the rugs and whatnot, camels, all of it. And he's standing in his tent. The door is open. He looks out, and it's morning. He says, suddenly, I saw a vivid colored rainbow stretching across the sky, east to west. This token of a covenant meant the moment had come for the consummation of the union between East and West.
Wow.
And thus was launched
the Suez Canal.
The Great Suez Canal. So that night, he waits till dinner time, and at the end of this great feast, he tells the viceroy that he's had this vision, and he proposes digging the Suez Canal. So apparently the viceroy asked just a few questions and declared the matter resolved. Yeah. They'll build the canal. And he points de Lesseps to lead this massive project, which is crazy because he didn't care that de Lesseps had no experience, even remotely.
No engineering, no technical experience.
At all. Nothing remotely.
A diplomat.
Yeah.
And a gentleman farmer.
Exactly. There was no discussion of what it would cost. No discussion, as you said, the Lesseps had any experience remotely related to building a canal. He represented no powerful organization. It was just him.
Right. He was no longer a diplomat.
No, it's just a country farmer. And, no entree into financial resources.
None.
Yep. But
in fact, the Lesseps didn't have money. That was one of the points.
Exactly.
That they were not a wealthy family.
Exactly. Great point. And so de Lesseps, with, all the power or with nothing but enthusiasm.
Just pure enthusiasm.
Launches off to lead the endeavor to build the Suez Canal, and somehow he pulls it off.
Yeah.
And I think, it took 15 years.
He pulls it off because he attacks it, and just by pure happenstance, technology continues to catch up with him. So you have steam shovels that suddenly are available out in the middle of the desert, and you're just moving sand, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the Panama Canal, but digging the Suez Canal, which is 3 times the length.
And no mountains.
It's just all flat land.
Yeah.
But man, he attacks it with enthusiasm. As he has success, word gets back to France, and people get excited about it. And suddenly all he is doing throughout this entire process is going door to door, championing the Suez Canal. Every newspaper article, every politician, all he did was just champion this cause with cran.
That's right.
Pure enthusiasm.
Indeed. And he's described as the entrepreneur extraordinaire.
Right.
He's described also his driving spirit as, quote, something new under the sun, of which there is no historical counterpart. Pretty amazing. Amazing.
Lord Palmerston, the British Prime Minister, referred to Lesseps as a swindler and a fool.
Yeah, well...
So the British knew, but again, he wasn't really a swindler and a fool because he was succeeding.
Yeah, and that carries him a long way. I have a quote on that too, that's his nerve, his persistence, his dynamic energy, his talent for propaganda, and a capacity for deception and imagination. He was a bit of an actor and as shrewd and as silky as a diplomat as anyone of his time.
That might be the perfect de Lesseps.
Yeah, that sums him up.
But we want to get back to France quickly, and
at some point the Panama Canal, right?
So when World War I breaks out, the French think that they are going to defeat the Germans with enthusiasm.
That's right.
Which they call cran.
That's right.
Cran. And so they go out into the battlefield in bright red pants, just in this show of complete ignorance but confidence.
Right.
And what happens is the Germans see the red pants and annihilate the French army, but they go with enthusiasm.
Indeed.
And it took them a while to be humbled.
Indeed.
And to realize that enthusiasm alone
is not enough.
Will not win you a war.
That's right. But
it's an ethos. It's a country ethos, and they really get behind the Suez Canal in a big way, and they buy into Ferdinand de Lesseps.
And his enthusiasm. Indeed. And so he pulls it off, and as a result, he is a national hero. They actually get it completed. Grand opening is November 17th.
It took 10 years to build, I think.
That's right.
Which is pretty impressive given the time period.
It might have been 15 years. 15 years. But yeah, it took a long time. November 17th, 1869. When it opens, there are tens of thousands of people lining the banks of the canal. And for the next 8 months, until the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War, he is Europe's reigning hero.
He's just a hero. He is just the most celebrated person, and he has carte blanche to go wherever he wants. And he raised a lot of money. And the people who bought shares in the Suez Canal Company, which is an actual company, which he's the CEO for all intents and purposes, all made a ton of money. It was a very lucrative, just like we were talking about in the last episode with the Panama Railroad. If you invested in the Suez Canal, you made your money back. I don't know how many fold.
Right.
It was a very, not a safe bet, but a lucrative bet.
Absolutely. And, that's really, I think the success of the Suez Canal is the only reason, or one of the reasons he's able to build or tries to build the Panama Canal, which we'll get to. So we move on now to the Franco-Prussian War, 1870. And the main point here is that this is just a brutal defeat of the French.
Yeah.
It became a profound catalyst for the French attempt to build the Panama Canal because they had to recover their spirit, their their enthusiasm, and this was the thing that did it. Let me just tell you a little bit about this. It was known as La Debacle because it was just such a disgrace. So Napoleon III was an old man by this point. He's so ill he could barely sit on a horse, yet he insisted on commanding an army in the field. Within 2 weeks, the main French army was penned in at Metz. On September 2nd, in 1870, at Sedan, Napoleon III and 100,000 of his troops had to surrender.
Good Lord.
It was the most stunning and humiliating defeat in French history. The war ended with the capitulation of Paris after a siege of 4 months. Beleaguered citizens ate pet cats and elephants from the Paris Zoo. I mean, it was just terrible. The French death toll was 3 times that of the Germans. And the peace terms, I mean, this was huge disgrace. France lost its rich industrial province of Alsace-Lorraine. And on top of that,
had to pay a huge debt.
That's right. Yeah, Germany demanded an indemnity of $1 billion. That's 5 billion francs. And the intent was to keep France crippled and subservient for a generation. However,
I know, it's amazing. It's a remarkable story that France managed to pay that indebtedness back so quickly, and suddenly they're back.
there was a sudden resurgence of enthusiasm of La France after the war, and Sedan was a rallying cry. It had released this vital inner resource. And so the French redoubled their efforts. They're fired up by the spirit of revenge, or revanche, as they say en France. And revenge was on the battlefields of peace and progress, at least until World War One. And everybody, and again, the rallying cry was "Remember Sedan," and that was actually a rallying cry in World War One as well. While they marched in and at some point maybe, doing something at least on the initial, that story you were telling about.
Yeah,
Guns of August.
Yeah,
that'd be a great podcast as
Kren.
well. The Kren. So the German indemnity was paid off by
I mean, it's
2
crazy.
years.
2 years, yeah.
Ahead of schedule.
It was supposed to set France back for a generation.
Yeah, they paid it off in 2 years. And so, meanwhile, de Lesseps he's still this hero figure. And France...
He's got nothing to do, though.
Yeah,
He's kind of trolling the waters, looking for what's next.
But
he proposes... Go on, sorry.
Well, no. Yeah, he's has these dinner parties of 10 to 12 people every night. Some of his old Suez comrades, and others. He's chairman and president of the Suez Canal Company, like you talked about.
He's making money.
And he made thousands of shareholders, very wealthy. And he was the charmed guardian of their fortunes. And he thrived on this public role that was expected of him. And so when you go to dinner with him, or see him in public, he would talk of these vast new schemes that he had, cooked up. One of them was he was going to build a railroad to join Paris with Moscow, and then Peking and Bombay. And then the other one...
The other one's my favorite.
Yeah, an astonishing plan to create an inland sea in the Sahara Desert by breaking through this low-lying ridge and flooding a depression the size of Spain.
The size of Spain. We were going to put an ocean, and everybody knew it was comical. Everybody knew it was not even remotely possible, but they just entertained him.
Did they entertain him, or did they believe him? I mean, did he represent, he's this French hero, he's the guy, the man of the hour, the guy that we need, to restore French's honor. I think they believed him.
I think the people who were engineers were like,
"Oh,
that's a great idea."
Well, he probably wasn't talking to engineers. He's talking to the populace. It's amazing.
It really is a remarkable story.
So kind of as a result of the debacle, Sedan, the Great Disgrace. At the same time, the geography, or the study of geography, since the war had become something of a national cause, and the Société de Géographie de Paris.
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
You're killing it.
Became one of the most influential institutions in France. It's a perfect forum for de Lesseps' interest, and it was one of his a favorite gathering spot for those who were most intrigued.
It was really the social center of Paris.
Was it at that point?
Because geography became such a big deal in the wake of the war, and they blamed their lack of knowledge of geography. You said Jules Verne, he wrote a book called Around the World in 80 Days, which was a bestseller, and so people were really suddenly into studying geography.
It was one of the characters of the epoch, as I read, and it was mandatory in schools. I mean, geographic societies they sprang up everywhere, and it was said, you started to hint on this, that ignorance of geography had put France in an inferior position, both commercially and also had contributed to the disgraceful performance during the Franco-Prussian War.
And that's what's so interesting about the Panama Canal, as you'll get into, is why France decided to latch on to this idea.
Yeah, and I think it was, it was a matter of French honor, kind of like a way to restore their honor by taking on this grand enterprise.
It makes sense given what happens, and we'll get into that in future episodes. Yeah. Why France continued to insist that this thing was going to work when it just, by every measure, was a disaster.
Absolutely.
But they continued to support de Lesseps.
Well, France needed an international triumph to finally put the disgrace of Sedan behind it. And, geography was the rage. And, the timing was absolutely perfect for this one convention that probably de Lesseps put on. But an international congress was held under the auspices of the Société
Right.
de Paris, de Géographie de Paris, in the summer of 1875. And that's where de Lesseps made his first public declaration of interest in an interoceanic canal.
Just completely randomly, he just decides to step into this. But he's the most famous canal builder in the world.
Right. Random, I don't know. I think he had this. I think he was waiting for the right moment. He was a guy that just thrived on attention. He was the hero of the Suez Canal. I think
America was looking at Nicaragua.
That's
there was
right.
this movement happening, and he saw the headlines.
Now is the time, right? And so they hold this international congress, and this was in the summer of 1875. And this is, like I said, where he made his first declaration about the idea of the canal. And so he had these meetings that were opened at the Louvre, and there was a huge geography exhibition, and it took Paris by storm. I mean, there were 10 to 12,000 people per day that came to this. And also at this point, talk about timing, it was also at this point that aided by the Rothschilds, England had suddenly acquired financial control of the Suez Canal. The horror, this was a French project. I mean, de Lesseps was still the head of the company,
right?
But he found his influence, greatly
under. Was waned. He no longer had the power because the British owned the canal.
It's like he may be the president, but they were the owners. They were
and a point. All of those investors made a ton of money.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know exactly. I guess maybe it was a leveraged buyout. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they got. But with the help of the Rothschilds and their money, they got controlling interests. So England now is controlling the Suez Canal, or had ownership, controlling interest in it. And so the quote was, "The beloved enterprise, the pride of France, had become a lifeline of the British Empire." And so that, again, just really added to the timing. It was also at this time, it was 1870s, President Grant's Interoceanic Canal Commission weighed in with their results of these surveys that we talked about earlier, that Selfridge
the first time there had been detailed mapping of the actual geography of the isthmus.
Not just
two different locations.
Not just travel writers making stuff up, or with Cullen or with Humboldt, who took his information from books and old maps and never even visited.
Just was like, this is the way to go. So
crazy.
America is currently leading the charge to build the canal across
Nicaragua. It is the American route.
Let me say this: it's the canal that's going to connect the Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean.
Right, exactly. And I think it was at this point that de Lesseps really got it in his head. I mean, just dead set in his head that Panama, whatever. He wasn't going to hear anything else.
So interesting.
Panama was going to be the French route. It was going to be, that was going to be the Americans had chosen Nicaragua, but France was going to persevere and rise up from the disgrace of Sedan with the French route, which was going to be Panama. And so they announced, the Society had announced that they were going to do this great international congress for the purpose of evaluating the scientific considerations at stake in building a canal across Central America. And said he went so far, Lesseps went so far as saying the American effort had been insufficient, which is crazy because they were the only ones that did.
It is such a great. These next few chapters are so interesting in terms of who had the right information, who had the wrong information, and when those two collide, the decisions are still baffling. Even though all of the information becomes public, there is just this drive to build the Panama Canal.
Right, even when it does not seem like it's the best route.
And we are just getting started. The Panama Canal we haven't even broken ground yet.
Right.
And the next two chapters, probably three, are going to continue this journey, and we haven't even scratched the surface. So thank you for joining History for Cocktail Parties.
Thank you so much for listening.
Like, listen, subscribe.
This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.